And a good teacher is not trying to control your life. A good teacher is trying to empower you to make those decisions on your own. Like Kostuba's teacher was saying to me, saying to him, well, what do you want to do? It's in there. You know, you don't need 3 months. You don't need 3 years. People do this all the time. I got to think about this. We've been,
That
you've been
was
engaged for about 8 years now.
that was actually maybe the bigger life lesson that I took of it. To be decisive.
Mm.
Once you have all the information added up, it's hard. Some of these life steps that we have to take are scary, but you just have to have. You have to have. That's where the faith in Krishna comes. Okay, Krishna, I'm taking a step. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm hanging on to you. But you have to. You do need to be decisive in life.
You need to total it all up,
Yeah.
and then you need to choose. And we suffer in the world so much from this analysis paralysis.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily spiritual podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator of the Bhakti Center in New York, Kostuba Das. Welcome to the show. This is episode 1445. Like that, Mary? I memorized that. She's impressed. Today's Q&A day. It's Sleeping Saturday for those at home. Slept in a little bit. And now it's 8 o'clock here at the farm, and we're in the midst of our Wisdom of the Sages retreat. It's so nice to have this place packed out with inspired people, and we get to meet people. There's a lot of people I've never met before this weekend, and there's a lot of old friends that have come again, that have come more than once this year. So it's really nice to have this space. I said it last night, but I wouldn't want to live in this big place without all these people coming on a regular basis. It's really nice to have people come and feel like this is right community building. I feel like the whole world sort of wants community. Sometimes you ever see these Instagram ads that say something like, there's a picture of a cabin in the middle of nowhere and says, this is a dream, cabined, no one around for 500 miles and stuff like that. It's not. People are we're social animals. We just want healthy, sweet
Right.
relationships.
They're just trying to get away from the problematic relationship.
Yeah, they just like, I'm so sick of people. I'm sick of my boss. I'm sick of my job. I'm sick of this city. I'm sick of this. Yeah, so you need something healthy. You don't just retreat from everybody. Come on.
They're right now like,
Okay.
No, it's one treat. You give your 6 pillars of bhakti talk, like, hey, let's keep the mood high. Let's keep our behavior on a high level. Let's keep the relationships on a high level. It's like people just kind of, everybody's already got it.
You don't have to do that with this group.
Yeah.
Even the group we have in India this year, it's just high level, high vibe people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't have to, sometimes when in the old days of leading like yoga retreats through India, it's like, I got to be like spiritual guide, therapist, the physician. It's like, okay, what are you
You
going
used to
through?
carry it all on your
Oh
back.
my God, it was hard.
I remember there are times, because it's hard. You take people to India. It's the first time there.
It's like they've never left the country. They've never left Long Island. It's like it's like the most exotic thing they did is like Four Seasons Honduras or something like that.
And they have such expectations of having a special time. And then as soon as the first challenges set in, and sometimes the morale goes down a little bit. And then I've seen Raghunath just like kind of take the whole thing, put it on his back, and say, "Let's go," and just like lift the whole spirits up again. But now since the podcast especially, everybody that comes is already plugged into Bhagavatam, plugged into practice, so they're just like flying already.
Yeah, so there's like an eagerness to go to holy places, to bathe in the Ganga, to see
an understanding that if I go through challenges, this is a healthy thing. Let me work through.
And if there are some new people that come,
yeah,
there's other people who have come, like Lori Pags. How many times have you been with me to India, Lori?
Many times.
8 or 9 times to India. So it's like you get people that have gone there, and they can sort of, it's almost like when I was a kid. I had 7 kids in my family. I was like 6 out of 7 kids. I never had a babysitter because all the older brothers and older sisters, they raised me. And it's sort of like that. If you're brand new to even to Bhakti or to India, you get so many people who have been there before. They just sort of take you by the hand and show you the ropes, and it's a lot less work for me.
Okay.
Look at, and so we're wrapping up this retreat. And some people are staying late Sunday, and we're having a save a day. We're doing a lot of bulb planting, wood stacking, and then we leave for India on Tuesday.
Yeah.
I know, exciting.
But meanwhile, we have announcements.
We have some announcements. Miss Mara, how are you? Look at this. It's like a lazy Susan.
I'm good. Watch out. The whole stack doesn't follow. All right. Wisdom of the Sages is hosting our second annual spiritual retreat in the sacred city of Mayapur.
Yeah.
The birthplace of ecstatic kirtan. The retreat can't be missed. Some highlights include excursions to powerful holy places, including Lord Chaitanya's birthplace, Jagannath Mandir, Srivas Thakur's house, and Ganga sunset boat ride.
And everybody must be like, who is this Srivas Thakur?
You have to come to my
His
house.
house.
Okay. Go to Wisdom of the. Also, our show tomorrow, we're doing Q&A live again, and then we'll be back to Bhagavatam on Monday, and no show Tuesday or Wednesday because of travel.
Right.
All right.
Thank you, Mara.
Those days without the podcast. You ever have those days? How many people here listen to the podcast every day? If you don't, that's okay. But okay. You ever have those days where like, no podcast today? What the hell am I supposed to do with my life? The Bhagavatam has become such like, it's become like water for us. It's like, I got a fast today.
Well, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. What's our first question?
We have Happy Jack, I think, is first.
We got Happy Jack. From
Let's hear it for Happy Jack, everybody.
Canada. Let's hear it for Happy Jack, everybody. There's a reason why he's called Happy Jack. He's bright-eyed
Look at
and
him.
bushy-tailed, always happy. How are you? Now, you're going to take Coach Duba's mic.
No. You take Raghunath's mic.
We'll switch off.
Hare Krishna.
Get that beautiful face in there. And
Okay.
you got to talk right into that microphone, sir. What's your question today?
My question, I guess I have many questions, and I'm not going to ask them all.
You can.
No,
Q&A day.
but I have many questions, and I guess I'm wondering who is the right person to go to ask those questions. So I'll share a few things. So sometimes I trust my nature, and I do what I think feels right, and that works. And I know that's the right thing to do sometimes. And sometimes, I've been led astray by trusting my intuition.
Yeah.
And so on this Bhakti path, the last few years, I've met many amazing teachers like yourselves. So thank you. Every day I get to listen to Bhagavatam with you. And there's others as well. I've met a few, great brahmacharis in India. And so I take guidance from them and some people in the academic world. And when I have questions, I get differing opinions naturally. And another thing that a teacher once said that resonated, Radhesham Prabhu from Pune, and he said, respect everybody and associate with a few, open your heart to very few, and trust, or take guidance from one, or trust fully in one. Krishna, maybe eventually a guru if that relationship is established. So I don't have that relationship yet. I have 8 Shiksha gurus, I would say, and you're 2 of them. And I guess I'm just wondering, when I have big questions like, should I get initiated? Those initiated related questions, or should I get in a relationship again? I've been married and uncoupled a couple of times. Where should I live after I graduate school? Different questions. And so, of course, if someone's a brahmachari in India, they have a certain lens and a certain, I feel they're, steering me in one direction. And if someone is a professor, they're steering me towards a PhD. And if someone's a grahasta, they're, nurturing the grahasta-ness in me. And so now I'm in this place. I know I can trust myself to a certain amount.
Sure. I think you should start a podcast personally.
Yeah. So I guess I'm just looking for, how do we navigate that? Like trusting ourselves, seeking wisdom from our teachers. Yeah. That makes sense.
Why don't you start with this question, and you might say exactly what I'm going to say. I
Okay.
got to feel like you might. So, but
Well, I was going to tell a bit of a story, actually.
Oh, I like stories. Tell me a story, Father.
First of all, let me start with let me start with I appreciate this idea. I think you've caught on to something important, that especially with these kind of forks in the road in life, there's certain passages that we go through in life that we may pass through and never be able to turn back, or that we pass through and it's going to be a significant change in life. And those kind of important decisions in life, wise people consult with wise people. You know, it's it is I've seen that in my life, that people that really know what they're doing, I respect the most, they also consult. You know, they also consult. Um, but we need to be, in one sense, we could have so many people that we consult with, we can just pick the one that we want, right? Pick the answer that we like the most. So what you said about people having different lenses is important. Now, I became a brahmachari, or a monk, like a student monk, when I was 21. And when I reached 33, I said to myself, if I'm going to get married, this is the time to do it. Right? Like, I don't want to wait until I'm 40 or something like that if I'm going to have kids. I just said, now's the time to make the decision. It's either renunciation for life, or I get married now. And I was it's a little hard to describe, but at that time in my life I felt a little bit like both paths were dark ones for me. And um I spent some time with I was going to spend 3 days with my guru at that time. He was in Cambridge, in England, Cambridge University. And I was on my way to India, so I was passing through, spending that time with him, and I knew we were going to talk about this. Now, my guru had this reputation, like, the word everybody used back then was staunch. Right? Like this, like
Staunch.
he's a
Very
staunch sannyasi. Like everybody thought that he was going to tell me to stay brahmachari. Right? That people commonly thought that. Everyone assumed that. And when I spoke to him, he didn't. He wasn't like that at all. He was putting the decision in my hands. But he said to me, "So what are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to India now for a few months, so I have some time to think about it." And he said, "No, no, 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 no." He said, "You don't need to go to India and think about this for 3 months. You know everything you need to know. You're not going to learn anything over there in these 3 months that's going to make some big difference." He said, "You have 3 days here. You should know before you leave here what you're going to do." But this is the point. This is the point that he said. He said, "You just have to be honest with yourself." And that was the essence of the instruction that I took for him. In other words, all of these, like, say, a life decision like that type of ashram, which, should I be married? Should I be a renunciate? That kind of question. Both of those are valid paths. They're both equally valid paths. They're both, and what you said about the lens is important. It may be that people that are married, um, they might be like, yeah, these renunciants, we've seen so many of them come and go, and they got this, romantic idea about, they even think they're superior to other, like, it may be clouded by emotions, by experiences, or I don't want to say clouded, but colored, let's say. And the renunciates may be like, yeah, no, this is the real thing, this is the superior path. This is people that really have their act together, doing it this way. This is what you should do. You can get that. So, even I don't even say that to mean like to criticize. It may be somewhat natural, because you're getting your own experience. And if you're thriving on that experience, then it's natural that you recommend that to someone else and see the value in it, maybe more than you see the value in another path. But the real important thing is that we're really honest with ourselves, because they're both fine. So I said to him, both paths look kind of dark to me right now. And he said to me, no, 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 both paths are very bright. Yeah, either you stay brahmachari and and you'll be, a wonderful brahmachari, or you get married and that'll be wonderful too. It's like just him saying that and saying, just be honest with yourself. You have to go right into your own heart, and you have to remove any kind of stories you're telling yourself about who you are or what you're going to be. And you really have to look right in and examine your own mind and your own heart and say, according to that, what's the and according to your external circumstances as well, what makes the most sense here, you know? And so that honesty with the self, I think, is most important. Then you could hear from all 8 people, as long as you're honest with yourself in the end. You could go ahead and get that good. I agree also that you may want to narrow down that scope for these kind of big questions in life. But in any case, that honesty with the self is going to be real essential. If you're trying to be something that you're not, or trying to be something because you think it would be better that you were that, then that might lead you to making a decision that might not be the best. Raghu, take it
I
away.
like it. I like that. Um, First of all, as a student, you have to be very honest with those people that you select to give you instructions. If I'm only giving them partial information about me, they just see me on my A game. They don't know my struggles. They don't know my weaknesses. They don't know my past. It's hard for them to direct me. If I go to a psychiatrist or a therapist and I don't tell them anything, I just say, I'm going through a hard time. Well, why? I don't know. I just have a hard day. They're going to want to sort of unpack that. So especially when you're asking a person for direction, whether it's an initiating guru or a shiksha, an instructing guru, or just a friend who gives you direction, you need to know your backstory.
Somebody that knows you.
Yeah, because I've had just like, you don't get me. You don't, maybe you don't understand who you're dealing with here. And we're all very unique. We're all on a spiritual journey, or we wouldn't be listening to this podcast or sitting in this room. Um, but how we go about it is going to be very, very unique. And we've all been, some of us are just getting out of teens. Some of us have been married. Some of us have been married twice. Some of us, right? Some of us want to have children immediately. Some of us, that's the last thing in our mind. We never want to have a child. So however we have to go forward and find a person that gets me and that sort of resonates with me. Because sometimes I pick some instructor that they're living their own magical spiritual world, and I'm attracted to it because it's sort of attractive. But they'll never get me sitting in upstate New York trying to I hear that
There's
all the time.
a certain like-mindedness
That's
or
it.
at least an understanding of your mind.
There's got to be a like-mindedness. When we get into bhakti, it's nice to think, we're going to like everybody. No, everybody's different. Everybody's different. Even amongst different cultures, they're different. And different culture, like Americans, there's an American thing about us, whether we realize it or not. And people will, if you go to Italy or Spain or Germany, they'll say, "Oh, this guy's so American," because we are. That we don't even realize there's a collective attitude we have. Same with Russians, same with Polish, same with Swedes. It's like almost like a collective karma and a collective characteristics. And so you have to find your tribe. You got to find the tribe, the people that get you, that you get, and that a tribe that not just someone that you jive with and you laugh with. That's important too, but the tribe that actually lifts you. You got to find the people that lift you up, see what you are, see where you can go. You have to have people in that tribe that really inspire you. And you need a community. People want community. This is what we said earlier. People want community. They want a community that lifts them higher, right? And they'll always get inspired. There'll be a wandering sadhu or mendicant or teacher, and you're like, or book, and you're like, that's a good book. I'm learning something from that book. But in my life, I have like 2, maybe 3 that I'll really ask advice from, and I'll take that advice seriously. To keep asking people for advice and not taking that advice, that's like an offense. So don't do it, because after a while, the people just say, listen, I love you, but everything I say, you're not doing it. So it's just like better you just do what you want to do then. And a good teacher is not trying to control your life. A good teacher is trying to empower you to make those decisions on your own. Like Kostuba's teacher was saying to me, saying to him, well, what do you want to do? It's in there. You know, you don't need 3 months. You don't need 3 years. People do this all the time. I got to think about this. We've been,
that
you've been engaged for about 8 years now.
that was actually maybe the bigger life lesson that I took of it. To be decisive. Once you have all the information added up, it's hard. Some of these life steps that we have to take are scary, but you just have to have. You have to have. That's where the faith in Krishna comes. Okay, Krishna, I'm taking a step. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm hanging on to you. But you have to. You do need to be decisive in life.
You need to total it all up.
Yeah.
And then you need to choose. And we suffer in the world so much from this analysis paralysis. It's like it never. And me and Mara were talking about this yesterday. We didn't have FOMO when we were growing up. People can't choose anymore because as soon as
too many options, too much information,
too much information. Like, oh man, the Northern Lights. Why didn't I see the Northern Lights? In here, it's like it's overwhelming because people are posting as soon as they're doing it. Now, suppose Bhakti Udi did something fun last week. By the time he develops the film, puts it up in a, sends out this is what I did. Check this thing out. It's already over. We're not thinking about it. But it's like we suffer tremendously sitting in a swamp of indecision. And it's sometimes you got to just add it up, do the math.
Good band name.
Swamp of Indecision from Hartford, Connecticut,
Florida, Everglades, from Jersey.
So it's one of those things you gotta do the math, you gotta add it up, and sometimes that just means as simple as pros and cons, and then you got to choose. So find those teachers in your tribe that you can relate to that lift you higher, and then I liked how that person gave you advice, and narrow it down to those, because you're not going to want to share your heart with everybody, but you got to pick somebody, or else what we do is we bury our heart, and there's no healing when I bury the very things I need to unearth. It's almost like if there's some glass in your skin, you got to dig that stuff out. I'm not going to let anybody dig it out. If a person's a qualified surgeon, they're going to go in there. But we're vulnerable, so you need to find people that you trust, that you can be vulnerable to, put their hand on your shoulder, say, "I get you, I understand." And a person who keeps that in confidence and just doesn't blab it with everybody. Right?
Is that all right? Happy?
Is that okay?
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you so much. I really resonate with that, and especially being honest with myself. I think I ask a lot of questions. Yesterday we had the BRG group with Jiva, which was amazing, by the way.
She's amazing.
Oh my goodness. And we got to ask a lot of questions as we do here. And I think now I just need to get honest with myself and make a decision, make a few decisions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Thanks, Happy Jack. Then Jiva is that surgeon. She goes right in there, starts asking those questions like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting it to go here so quick."
And that Radesh Chant Prabhu from Pune, that's like one of these super geniuses kind of person,
Yeah.
And renounced, just amazing soul. All right.
Who's next? Miss Maya, come on down.
Comes Miss
Maya
Maya.
Cabrinha.
Maya's a natural to Bhakti Yoga, isn't she?
Maya, you're coming right in between us. Maya's one of my adopted daughters.
Hi, well,
How are you?
I'm good. Super great here.
Love having you around. She's a kirtan extraordinaire.
Yeah.
And
She's got a taste for Shastra, a taste for kirtan.
yeah, she's a real taste for Bhakti.
Thank you. I'm trying.
Yeah.
Sorry.
How can we serve you? How can we serve
Can we
you?
establish that?
On the concept of trying, really meditating on how do we balance our material / humanic reactions with my friends, humanic.
Humanic.
Yeah, our
Okay,
humanic
I like that.
reactions and necessities with our spiritual aspirations. And it kind of was, I was thinking about this during Jack's question, because one of the advice that you shared was to respect everyone, but open your heart to a few. And sometimes that sounds like, or to me, I took that as kind of like a lonesome existence. Like I want to be able to be in a space where I can love everyone and be open and warm with everyone. But sometimes it can be hard when balancing my humanic tendencies or aspirations.
You get that?
Let's, and I was a little distracted. Mary's, no, Mary's doing a job. Can you boil that down?
Yeah, boil that down again
Yeah, so like
without using the word humanic. Human works.
human tendencies, sorry. So like, I think an example, our great acharyas, they love without discernment. There is a lot of discernment, but in terms of, I'm seeing Lord Chaitanya with Jagai and Madai. He showed the same compassion with them as anyone else, even with this aggression. So I would say that's a spiritual aspiration of mine. But how do I balance that with my material necessities, my human tendencies?
I think
You got that? Or you go with that. And if he's doing good, thumbs up it, and I'll jump in. So I'm still a little vague.
you don't need her thumbs up to jump in. But it's interesting that you use that. But I think when you use that example of Sri Chaitanya, it maybe maybe it helped me understand what you're getting at. There are our great teachers of bhakti. We call them acharyas, right? These great teachers. They kind of outlined for us, even it's outlined in Bhagavatam. The sages outlined it in Bhagavatam, 3 different levels of practicing bhakti, or you could say 3 different levels of realization in bhakti. So the first one is the beginner, and we call it kanishta. And in kanishta, it's like you've taken on the faith. This is real important because a lot of the we live in an age where religion, at least over large parts of the globe, religion is kind of seen as almost like as a negative connotation, just the word.
Yeah.
But that's because when people come to religion, they're generally starting off or operating. A lot of times, huge communities get stuck on the Kanishta level, which means we're into the externals. We haven't really begun to develop the internals. We feel we have the best faith and the best path, and we feel that others that aren't on that path are dead wrong. They're just kind of looking at like if they've then they're on the right path. Person they haven't the the medium level is a person that's actually developed some spiritual insight. But it's said that on that level, and this is a powerful. I don't want to. When we say it's the medium level, it's a really good place to be practicing from. It's like we need to concentrate on getting ourselves off the Kanishta level and onto that Madhyam level. Because when you get to that Madhyam level, when you begin to chant the holy name, it's now the effect is going to be much more transformative. It means you've learned to respect every living being. It means that the externals are less important to you now. But you've developed a discernment still. You developed a discernment to understand this person's getting it, this person's not getting it. I can see by the way they behave, by the way they express themselves. Let me respond appropriately to each level of person. To people that are very advanced, let me respond like a servant practically, with humility. Let me inquire from them. Let me hear from them with a certain urgency and a certain concentration. Let me seriously hear from them, and let me learn how to relate with my peers, and for those that are in a sense more junior to me in some sense, let me approach them with a sense of compassion and trying to help in any way I can. And so the Madhyam level is a path where you are really making discernments, and then there's the Uttama level. And on the Uttama level, it's almost like nothing needs to be done. It's like everybody is like on their path. They're going to be good. But it's said that the Uttama comes down to the Madhyam platform in order to serve with compassion. It doesn't mean that their realization has come down. It just means they're operating on that level. They're operating on that level. So that first, I wanted to put that out there, maybe as kind of like a a background to trying to get to the rest of your question. So then the rest of the question, even that kind of goes back to Jack's question in a sense, I think, because a lot of it has to do with honesty with oneself. We read about Gajendra the elephant recently, and there Srila Prabhupada wrote this such an insightful and helpful commentary where he was saying that the elephant is more powerful than the crocodile, but the elephant was losing the battle. Why was it losing? Because it was in the water, and the water was an unnatural circumstance for it. So it had a material need, right? Like the water's not good for me when I'm engaged in this fight. I need to be on land. You could just say, what is water, land? It doesn't matter. No, but he was losing the battle, right? And so, in one sense, we could characterize our spiritual path as a battle because the senses are drawing us one way, the mind's drawing us one way, and we're having to build up the clarity and the determination to resist that, to reach for higher spiritual aspirations. But if we um, if we imitate a higher level of realization, then we won't have the ground that we need to stand on in order to keep taking positive steps forward. So your question essentially was how to balance that, if I understood it. How do I know if if what I'm doing is imitating a higher level of realization than I'm at? Or am I holding on? Should I be taking a step forward and maybe I'm holding myself back when I don't need to be? And there's really no answer to that question. In this, in one sense, there's no answer to that question because that's one of those questions that it requires discernment that will grow, in you, step by step, and it also is kind of goes to what Jack said. That's the kind of thing where we get guidance. That's the kind of thing where we get guidance from people that we respect, people that we see are walking the path well. You know, they're walking the path well. I can hear from them. They'll have something to share with me. And again, it's always going to require honesty with oneself,
And that
as
they
well.
really know you.
And that they really
That
know
they
you.
know
So,
you. That's right.
so in one sense, it goes back to that. But I would like to hear more
You know
from
what?
you.
I actually like your answer.
Oh,
I'm going to go with
glad
your
you like
answer
it.
today, and I'm going to just be quiet.
I have
Because
to be.
quiet is also good. I also am quiet sometimes.
No,
That was very
well,
good.
but you want to ask follow-ups on that? We can contribute any other
Yeah.
thoughts?
Well, I was looking forward to your answer, Raghunath Prabhu, because I asked Kastuba Prabhu this the other day, and I really appreciate asking the same questions and hearing different answers. So,
Okay. At all at this stage, since he gave that nice answer?
mm, well, specifically this question, I was thinking about after starting Bhakti Shastri and reading chapter 1 of the Gita and the theme of aggression, and Arjuna having this calamity of, am I doing this destruction of, is this a dharmic? Um, and ultimately Krishna says, like, no, you have to do this. I organize this so this happens in this way specifically. If
Okay.
you don't kill them, they're dead anyways. But on the topic of aggression, how do we balance that need between the
To be aggressive.
no. Sorry.
Yeah.
Not the need for me to be aggressive. But when we're getting perceived aggression, how do I how do I
Yeah. So like you may be in a community of Vaishnavas, um, and sometimes within that community, there's always different ideas about how we should be operating, and people
Mm,
have different opinions. Sometimes it feels like I need to speak up right now. There needs to
mm,
be a shift, in this community, in this ashram, in this family, whatever. Or maybe that's not my place to be speaking up right now. Maybe I should be quiet. Is it that we're getting close?
yeah.
Yes.
I, I actually really like that too. It's one of these things. If I have a great idea and the way things should be done, is it my place to share that? Sometimes it's not. Sometimes I'm just cruising through and this is the way they do things. But if I'm committed to something and to changing it and being a part of that change, then I said, listen, I'm ready. I'm here for the long haul, but here's what needs to, here's what needs to shift. Then you can give your, when you're there for the long haul, there is a weightiness to your statements. You know, if you're just flying in there on the seat of your pants and then you want to change the whole world in their little community, you might want to rethink that, or else you're going to misstep and then just people won't take it well. But when you're committed to it, That's it. That's it. What do you think?
No,
like
that's
one-
very helpful. And I was thinking that my tendency, just the way I grew up and my own sense of pride or callousness or whatever in me, for most of my spiritual life, I would lean on the side of like, I'm going to open my mouth and tell people the way it should be. And hey, you better pick up your standard. And
This is a
this,
bunch
that-
of Maya.
this is all Maya.
He does it to me.
I still do it. And I still haven't learned my lesson, honestly. But I have had the really good fortune to witness some very advanced devotees and see, even though like their status within the society of devotees is on a much higher level than mine, the patience that they have. Because it's not only like, can I say that? It's not even a question of, is this right? Always. But it's a question of, even if I have the right thing to say, will it be understood? Will it be appreciated in this circumstance coming from me? Uh, maybe this requires more patience. Maybe this has to fail a little bit before it succeeds. Maybe, that kind of patience is something I'm trying to learn.
We've seen that happen with Radha Swami's managing techniques,
Yeah,
where he can just go in and change everything, and he doesn't.
yeah.
He'll
that's
back
right.
off and let them figure it out, and it's very empowering because it makes you grow. So sometimes you may want a direct answer from somebody. Okay, Maya, you should be doing this, and maybe have to just like wait it out and see, and and make some choices and misstep, and then make the right step.
Yeah.
And maybe no one's just gonna. Sometimes in the telling of you, it's a little also disempowering. It sort of enables you not to think it through.
Even in meetings, for instance, let's just take a meeting as an example. Like some people are like super intelligent and they kind of have the answers often, but if they're always the first to speak and always dominate the meeting, then their ability to actually influence that meeting starts to decrease
Mm.
because it's not going to be received as well. Sometimes the person that's the most quiet, not only as an external demonstration, but even because they're taking it in the most, they're actually spending the time to really hear it and fine tuning their response. Sometimes it's that person that people are going to listen to the most, and even fewer words will have greater influence. So yeah, the way the world works and the way our minds works, ultimately we're trying to bring forward a more positive, either a resolution or a more positive direction, a more positive influence. But how that influence takes root or how that influence sets in, whether it's in just a two people relationship or a broader community, it's a subtle thing. It's a subtle thing. Whether some people, there's this phrase, the operation was successful, but the patient died. You've heard that before? Like
Do
I
everything
said
right.
exactly what I was supposed to say. It was dead right. Yeah, but nobody understood it and the whole thing just flopped, So that kind of communication, trying to influence people, trying to change things, trying to change the way the people operate or the way they think. It's a spiritual practice. It's really kind of how we fine tune our own character, our own spiritual qualities. Is a lot of it has to do with that friction between people. So it's a really good place to learn. Learn how to be a devotee, learn how to be a real Vaishnava, a real sadhu.
Thank you.
Hope that was
Thank
okay.
you, Maya. Let's hear
Hello,
from
Maya.
Maya.
Let's hear from Maya. We love Maya.
And that's the sense. All right, we got
Catherine A.
We got Catherine A coming up.
Catherine A, come on down.
Catherine A, let's hear for Catherine A.
Woo.
Catherine A is like a fixture of Super Soul Farm. Like she belongs
is.
here, right?
It's a wonderful fixture.
Yeah.
How are you?
Fixture. You're more than a fixture.
Haribo, Hare Krishna.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm blessed.
Nice weekend, isn't it?
Ah, the best. The best.
How can we serve you?
Haribo, Hare Krishna, Dandavats pranams to all the beautiful devotees. And my question is kind of technical / spiritual. When chanting, why don't we pass the guru bead? Malas, those like 27 bead malas. And how do you deal with the guru bead with those? And versus neem, if we get.
I'll jump a little bit on
Go
this.
for it, Rogan.
First question: the why?
Maybe you
pass-
have to explain things.
Yeah.
to-
So there's a. We were saying this yesterday. There is a way to
Practice
transform
meditation.
ourselves. There's a way to transform ourselves, and it's by showing up on a regular basis. For example, if I go to the gym, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to go to the gym for an hour a day, for 5 days a week. Does explicit commitments change us? Implicit implicit things are not committed generally. They say, I'm going to go to the gym. When are you going to go to the gym? When I want to work out, I'll go. Who do you think in a year is going to be more, strong and fit? Is the person who makes an explicit commitment. So sadhana bhakti is a explicit commitment to our changing by adding spiritual practices. And one makes it very explicit is the beads, which are for counting.
Yes.
There's 108 on these beads, and they call it the Meru bead, the Guru bead, the Krishna bead. I've heard it have different names.
Oh,
Acha. Sure.
Okay. The question is, why don't we pass the guru bead when chanting on malas? And what's your opinion on the short malas, which are 27 beads instead of the 108? And how do you deal with the guru bead with the short malas?
And neem or tulsi. That was another one.
neem or
What
tulsi.
or rosewood or lotus seed. So the first question is, to be regulated, you need a regulated amount that you're going to commit to. So there's 108 beads. There's many interesting reasons why 108 is an auspicious number. That's what they choose, but that's what they choose. That's what the masters have chosen as the Indian rosary, as it's called. Just like in the Christian rosary, there's 54, which is interesting because it's half of 108. But whether you're doing it and then just suppose you want to chant 3 rounds on your beads per day. And sometimes people they don't like to carry a big beads, or they don't like to carry a bead bag. So they get these little ones, little beads. They can just wear them around their wrist, and they use those to chant on. It's the same concept. You're just trying to keep track to meet your commitment. If you were to ask me, there might be some other thing that I'm not understanding. You're just trying to commit a certain amount of time where nonsense won't be coming out of your mouth, because nonsense comes out of my mouth a lot, except for when I have to chant the holy name. So it's sort of like a little sacrifice of my speaking tendency to be into a praying and remembering tendency. And as far as going over the guru bead, never heard. Sometimes I think there are reasons of tradition. I've never heard the reasons of that to walk over it. So I can't comment on that. And within different lineages, there's different wood or types of bead that are favorable. We look at Tulsi as a goddess, not as an ordinary being. And some people say, well, Tulsi is an herb. Tulsi is a plant, no different than a rose plant or any other shrub. It grows into a woody bush. Why is that sacred? Well, there's whole reasons why we consider it a sacred plant, and it's inconspicuous. Just like maybe there's like a famous actor here, but I don't know them because I suppose I don't know anybody here. But one of you is really famous. You don't know. You just blend right in. Tulsi blends in. Looks like an ordinary herb or plant. But according to a person who's a botanist, they understand, or a person who's into celebrities, they know he's a celebrity. This guy's a celebrity right here. Right? So, and for those who are spiritualists, they understand, no, this is Tulsi. This is not ordinary. This has special potency. Tulsi accelerates your bhakti. Tulsi is considered a pure devotee, like Govardhan Hill is. Also,
Goddess,
like
yeah.
Guru is. Like so there's certain, when you approach the pure devotee, it has a accelerating, like a trampoline springing effect on your bhakti. Now, some of these things in our bhakti practice are very easy to understand. I wake up early, I meditate, I sing. Singing affects me. I'm restricted in my diet. I like a healthy diet, a clean diet. I go to bed early. I treat other people with dignity. I see everybody as a spirit soul. That makes really logical sense. Why this? Uh, why this? Rosemary plant is an ordinary jiva, and this basil plant, a sacred basil or holy basil or tulsi, is like a goddess. I don't know. These are things that just masters have shared. And those are certain things I'll extend a little faith in. It's not blind faith, it's reasonable faith. Why? Because this person's walked down the road before me. He understands these things, or she understands these things. So I use them as guides in my life. In the same way we use guides who, the Lewis and Clark, have mapped out a path across the United States. So I trust their opinion more than no one who's ever left their hometown. So that's as far as Tulsi. We like Tulsi. Neem is also very nice because it's considered a, a antiseptic, or it's like has a clean toothbrush, like antiseptic. It's considered an auspicious tree. But Tulsi, nothing more sacred than Tulsi for us. What do you think about that, Kastuba?
I agree with you, Raghunath.
All right.
I was thinking that you used one word which I think gets to the essence of the whole question. You said use the word sacred, right? So the idea is that really, if you just boil the whole from the bhakti perspective, really you could just boil this whole path down to the idea that we've been insensitive and ungrateful to God, essentially, right? That everything's provided for us, and an incredibly enriching relationship is there, and somehow we're like, yeah, I don't want that. It's not so special. I want something else, and we're looking through this world for something else. So it's kind of like when something is very special, um, it if we don't recognize it as special, then there's something wrong with us that needs to be adjusted. And so, therefore, on spiritual paths, certain things are held as sacred, and therefore, like a temple is designed, like the whole so much endeavor in the architecture and the design to create a temple and then to create an altar, to draw your attention right to what we're holding most sacred, and then that's on the altar. But the whole idea is we're just trying to adjust our mind to it. And therefore, there are rituals and there are etiquettes and so on that are meant to bring your mind, to keep what's sacred in your mind, to keep it sacred. And so certain things are not essential, but they're helpful. Like when Srila Prabhupada did his first initiation in the United States at 26 Second Avenue in 1966, they didn't have any Tulsi beads. So they went out to some store and they just got some big red wooden beads, right?
Yeah.
And you still meet Mukunda Maharaj now. He still has those beads.
Sadhguru Maharaj still
Yeah,
has
they
those
still
beads.
have those beads. They didn't go and get Tulsi. Those are sacred to them because Prabhupada gave them to him, right? If someone said, "Don't chant on that, chant on this Tulsi. It's more sacred." Well, that's sacred, but Prabhupada gave me these beads, so what could be more sacred to me? So it's just a question of what we respect. Now, different it's not only even just our tradition. It's there in Buddhism, it's there in Christianity. This rosary idea is there, and I think 108 is very common even across traditions. um One explanation that people give to help keep our mind on what's sacred is they say, okay, well, there's 108 gopis, and then there's Radha and Krishna. So then you're saying guru bead. I've always heard like Krishna bead or the Radha Krishna bead, right? But either way, so it's kind of like each one of those. Sometimes on the beads, I don't know if that one had them, but the last 8 of the beads, there's a little
String.
yeah, a little most. So when we get to those that Krishna. So we've chanted, till we're at the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna, and we turn around and we don't step on them or step over them in a sense. That's probably the thinking behind it. What we step
I
over.
like that. Never thought of
Yeah.
that. Okay, I'm
I
gonna go
think
with
so.
that.
I
I
mean,
don't even know if
that's
it's right, but I'm gonna go with
could be
that.
completely wrong. When George Harrison was getting trained in sitar by Ravi Shankar, he it's a big instrument. You set it down on the ground, and he stepped over it, and Ravi Shankar said, "No, no, no, you never step over your instrument. It's like the musician has to keep that instrument like sacred." And in India, stepping over something is seen as disrespectful. Especially you don't step over another person. If someone's lying on the ground, you step over. It's like that's like real.
You've seen that like in a crowd when you have to go through a crowd and everyone's sitting on the floor in India.
Yeah.
You never step over their knees.
Even
You
you're
always
just kind of
put your
give me a
hand
little space."
forward, and the hand is sort of like the drill. Like you say, "Excuse me," and they
Like
all move their
like in
knees.
the
And,
Arctic when they had to
yeah,
break through
yeah, they
the
gotta break through the glacier.
yeah.
It just sort of like everyone lifts their knees so you can go through it. You sort of get low and you put your hand down, and everyone sort of moves for you. But you never hop over or step over.
Right,
They'll be like, "The heck? What are you doing?"
right. Yes, like I once saw one devotee do that to another devotee. And they were actually having some tension in their relationship.
Yeah.
And then the one devotee stepped over the body of the other devotee who was lying on the ground.
It's like, how dare you?
No, but I appreciate he was he just said, "I can't believe you just did that." It was like, where have we come? Like that we're not honoring each other. Like
Mm.
he wasn't getting angry, but he just saw it as like we're really slipping here, that we're not honoring each other. Like
My
that.
dog Gus was laying right in front of the threshold of the house, and I stepped over I think one of my kids was like, "Dad,
How can you step over,
step
Gus?
over your dog."
But here's related to exactly that. We need to understand the purpose of all of these etiquettes or all of these standards or there's because if we lose the essence, then it doesn't work the same way. We don't transform the same way.
We just get caught up in a ritual.
Yeah. But there's
We walk away from it eventually. We're just like, these are just
there's a
crazy
bunch of rules
rituals.
to follow for no reason. Once there was Sri Chaitanya was living in Puri, and you can visit where he lived now. It's this tiny little space. And he would stay up all night going into the deepest meditations on Radha and Krishna. It's called the Gambira. And it's like Gambira, I think it means like very grave. It's like something happening in there that's just the deepest. And one afternoon he was there, and his servant Govinda was massaging him. And he was exhausted. I think he had been in kirtan, like, and he the space is very tiny, and the entrance is very small. And he just kind of collapsed in there, and I think Govinda said, "Would you like me to massage you?" And he said, "Do whatever you like." And so he massaged him until he fell asleep. And then he had to exit. And he was outside at first. And he said, "Just do whatever you want." And he was like, "Well, I have to do my service." He would never want, in order to do his service, he would have to step over him to do it.
Mm.
But he laid down a cloth over him, and then he took the step.
Oh.
And then he massaged him, and then he fell asleep, and then he just waited there. And when Sri Chaitanya woke up, he said, "Oh, you're still here?" He's like, "Yes." He said, "Well, why didn't you go?" He said, "Well, he was just very humbly, he was just responding very humbly. And he said, "You stepped over me to get in. Why didn't you just step over me to get out?" He said, "Well, I had to step over you to do my service. But I didn't have to step over you after that." So he broke the etiquette to do the service, which is, in a sense, a higher way of respecting his sacredness. Right? I got two ways to respond to him as being so sacred, and he chose the one that he felt facilitated his service.
Good story. I'm stealing that story.
No, that's
Yeah.
it's a
Can I
good
have
story,
that?
right? It's in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's not mine. And so, but then when he was done, there was no need to step over him to do that service anymore. So then he brought that standard back and applied it in that condition. So whether it's 27 or this or that, the main thing is we're keeping that name sacred. That's why we're counting it.
Mm.
There's a verse, I think it's in the Padyavali, this collection of verses by Rupa Goswami, that says, I want to count these names like a miser counts their money, like their coins. So I'm like, right, like, yeah, but just like because they're so into that coin, I don't want anyone else to have that. It's like sacred. Money is what's sacred to the miser, So, and I want to chant these names like, what is it? Like a lover. It has something to do with like a lover, the way they write a letter to to their lover. But anyway, I assume it's something like that. Why we're instructed, you start here, you end here, then you turn around and you go back. Because we're not over something.
Right. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us live. Got a full house here at Super Soul. Let's spin the lazy Susan here.
Jai Shri Krishna Bolo Jai Radhe Bolo
Jai Shri Krishna Bolo Jai Radhe
Jai Shri Krishna Bolo Jai Radhe Jai Shri Krishna Bolo Jai Radhe
Thanks, everybody.